Well, good evening. It is March 30th, 2022. It is 8 p.m. This is Rightward News, where we aim to expose the leftist mainstream narrative and flip it on its head. My name is Malachi Alguera, and I am your host. Tonight, we'll be discussing Women's History Month, the U.S. Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown-Jackson, Florida's Parental Rights and Education Bill, and more. But let's first, I'm going to make sure that my audio is working here. I hope it is. Let's see. All right, I'm going to check one thing really quick. All right, so I just realized that this music is playing. I'm going to stop the music, and we're going to get to the news. First, as we come to the end of Women's History Month, I want to start off this episode by wishing a very happy Women's History Month to two special people this year. The first, if you have been following anything in politics this year, you would have seen that Joe Biden's nominee for the the Assistant Secretary of Health for the federal government. We want to wish, here we go, let's put this up here. This is not Willie, this is Richard Levine, who began hormone replacement therapy in May of 2019. Again, this is the deputy or the assistant health secretary for the U.S. Department of Health. I just want to, let's see, sorry. So let me get my facts straight here. So Richard Levine, who is not the first woman four-star admiral, Richard supposedly transitioned to female or transitioned to woman in 2010. Just a reminder that Mr. Richard Levine was a pediatrician treating women. Yes, this is your assistant health secretary for the United States Department of Health. Next, recently in the news, we have had a college swimmer, NCAA swimmer, who's been making big headlines. It's been very controversial. I'd like to present to you the second Woman of the Year for 2022. This person's name is Willie Thomas, who began hormone replacement therapy in May of 2019. Leah, or William, Willie, who goes by the name of Leah Thomas these days, as a college swimmer, NCAA ranked 554th in the 200-yard freestyle when competing against men. And in the 500-yard freestyle, Thomas was the 65th in the country in the men's division. So let's give a happy Women's History Month to Willie Leah Thomas. I just got to say, this later year, I just can't wait to be celebrated by my kids for Mother's Day. In the next story, we're going to talk about the gaslighter-in-chief, Joe Biden, his nominee for the United States Supreme Court. This is Kentanji, who I like to call Jumanji Brown-Jackson. I just want to remind you, so this is actually a woman. She is before the committee who will ultimately decide whether or not she becomes a U.S. Supreme Court justice. And when asked by a Congresswoman if Jumanji Brown Jackson can define a woman, she said, and I quote, actually, we'll just read the quotes here. She said, let's see, I wonder if I can move. It'd be awesome if I could move my face to the other side. But it doesn't look like I can, which is a bummer. Because it looks like I'm facing away from what I'm reading when actually I'm looking towards it. But back to the quote. Congresswoman Blackburn asked, "Can you provide a definition for the word woman?" And Jumanji Brown Jackson replied, "No, I can't." Congresswoman, stunned, obviously says, "You can't." And Jumanji replied, "Not in this context. I'm not a biologist." Well, this begs two questions. First of all, if Joe Biden, who promised to nominate a black woman for the Supreme Court, um, how was this woman picked? How was Jumanji picked if she's not a woman? If Joe Biden or anyone in the Biden administration can't define what a woman is, how was Jumanji picked? How is it possible that cognitive declining Joe Biden would know that she's a woman? He certainly is not a biologist. Second, by saying that she, in this context, not being a biologist, can't define what a woman is, well, she is affirming the fact that a woman is a biological term and not, as the left says, a construct. Well, let me really quick define what a woman is. I'm not a biologist. I'm a white collar worker. I am currently a podcast host, I guess. So yeah, let me do this. Let me define what a woman is. A woman is an adult female human being. Simple enough. But here's the other thing. The left and the powers in the education system have come up with some strange idea that a woman and female are different, that um, that uh, one is tied to biology and one is a social construct. It's just a load of crap. So let me tell you what the traditional definition of female is, because I already defined what a woman is. A woman, like I said, is an adult female human being. A female, traditionally speaking and biologically speaking, the actual definition is the sex that can bear offspring or produce eggs. Simple enough. Again, I'm not a biologist. Um, I'm a simple college dropout, white collar worker, podcast host. And yeah, that was your middle school science lesson of the week. So as we move on to, before we move on to our next story, just want to give a cheers to freedom. In all seriousness, the terrible outcome of this circus was that the technocratic world media, who consistently tries to paint the GOP as racist, um, but in fact, what is actually more sad is that the radical Democrat culture of affirmative action has led to a black woman being nominated solely based on the color of her skin, not on her merit, let alone the content of her character. Which is the most important quality of a justice? The content of their character. That being said, let's move on to some good news in the world. Out of Florida, again, legend Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and a big loss for pedophiles this week, and an even bigger win for children and families. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the Parental Rights and Education Bill into law. This law, which critics dubbed the "Don't Say Gay" bill, prohibits classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity with children in third grade or younger. Yes. Yeah. So it prohibits classroom instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity with children in third grade or younger, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. This has been in the news a lot this week. If you've watched the news at all, you'll see interviews on both the left and the right. And one thing that is quite striking to me is the fact that for the radical leftist Democrats, for these radical progressives on the left, it seems that the hill that they want to die on is indoctrinating and grooming kindergarten through third graders, even Disney. There's been stories this week of some of the presidents within Disney who are not even hiding the fact that they have an agenda to indoctrinate children. Disney, you know, I'm going off script a little bit here, but you know, I've been shocked over the last year um, watching Disney Plus. I have two kids. My oldest is 10, and we she'll often watch Disney Plus and scroll through to see what shows or movies are on. And we've had to really crack down on that because they the fact is that they are slipping just such perverted uh films and shows onto Disney Plus, even advertised to kids. I won't go into too much detail about that, um, but it's just shocking. It's absolutely horrific. The fact um, that Disney and the media are so bent on indoctrinating our children. But DeSantis, the legend that he is, hit back at Hollywood saying, if the people who held up degenerates like Harvey Weinstein, as exemplars and as heroes and as all that, if those are the types of people that are opposing us on parents' rights, I wear that like a badge of honor. Cheers to Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. Our next story from the White House. It turns out the CDC is full of absolute crap. In a new report from Fox News, it turns out the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is completely full of crap. Internal emails obtained by Politico reveal that even Dr. Fauci knew that the 6 feet rule was based on decades old research. Further emails obtained by a FOIA request, that means the Freedom of Information Act, it went on to show how the CDC allowed teachers' unions to write the guidance on school reopenings, not based on science, but based on fear, control, and political profiteering. Let's do a favor for the country and just abolish the CDC. The left wants to abolish the police who are there to really uphold the law and protect us, serve and protect. The CDC, on the other hand, is just it's been for the last 2 years, the fourth branch of the government, unelected. They're now just another pointless, bloated, parasitic governmental regulatory body. And I say, abolish the CDC. In our last story, we hear from jet lagged former Vice President Joe Biden, who, from the royal castle in Warsaw, Poland, gave a speech which occurred way past his bedtime. Former Vice President Joe Biden in Poland says, and I quote, "For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power," speaking of Russian President Vladimir Putin. And it seemed as if Joe Biden, in his jet-lagged grog, was calling for a regime change. Well, I just want to say to former Vice President, our gaslighter in chief, thanks, Joe, for pissing off Putin even more. But as we start to bring this episode to a close, I'd like to say the same thing about you, Biden. For God's sake, Joe Biden cannot remain in power. Well, it's been, let's see, it is currently 8:17 p.m. on this March 30th, 2022, in the year of our Lord. And I just want to thank you for hanging in there for this this broadcast. If you happen to watch our last broadcast, it went a little longer. As I'm getting into the swing of this, my hope is that this will be a real brief overview of the news, not just an overview of the news, but really take the news, the big stories of the week, and flip them on their heads. I really want to expose the leftist media for just the absolute bullcrap that they are. So, with that being said, this has been another episode of Rightward News. If you enjoyed this stream, go ahead and tickle the like button for us. Share this with someone who needs a quick news update that is honest, factual, and to the point. You'll have all the references down below after this broadcast, down in the description. Lastly, leave a comment and share with us what you liked and what you'd like to see. Let me hide this thing real quick. All right. Yeah, leave a comment, share what you'd like to see. Do you want more commentary? Do you want some interviews? Do you want less fluff, less of me just sharing my opinions? Let me know in the comments. And in the future, as this begins to grow, I'd really like to have more interaction with the audience. So if you end up getting into the live stream, I'd love to have some interaction there. So to end, I just want to say, when life leaves you a little confused, continue rightward. Good evening. Good night.